I'm going to call this meeting to order at it is now
God. I was going to do it with
6:06. And
Right in there now?
we are attempting our first in-person meeting in a while. So bear with us. As you just saw, we're moving furniture. Okay, so let's see, who do we have?
Did you seal it?
Okay. So do we have any changes or additions to the agenda? David, if you think
Yes, we need to do that. The tax anticipation note. And I also have financials, the end of year financials for
okay.
everybody. So we can, those won't, neither one of those should take long.
Okay.
We were also going to talk about building committee.
It's later on the agenda.
Oh,
Sarah.
that's right.
Oh, good. That's right. Okay, great.
Okay, awesome. Let me just make sure that there's nothing. I think, yeah, okay, so we've got the COVID update, which I'll cover for now.
So much fun.
Okay, so I will take a motion to approve the minutes from our retreat of July 15th, 2021.
I move.
Okay, Colleen moves.
I'll second.
Okay, Sarah seconds. All those in favor, or no, let's, any discussion of the minutes? Thank you, Angie.
I don't have
Thank you, Angie.
Oh, you're welcome. I think you caught the gist of what we were looking at. Okay. I'm still gonna stop. So all those in favor of approving the minutes, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? And any abstentions? No. Okay, so those were approved 4-0 without Scott in the building yet. Okay, do we have any public participation or announcements? Okay, that checks that off. Okay, so Christine, you're up.
So should I present my screen?
You certainly can, it'll
Yeah.
work. It
It'll
will
work?
work, yeah.
Yep.
All right.
Okay, so this is the principal's report?
It is. I always get mixed up. This one, right? Window?
No, you want to present, you want to go down to the three dots, I think. No?
No, I don't think so.
All right.
Hold on.
Right there.
Here. Maybe.
It's just going to be.
You could probably pin your
Yes.
screen, yeah. I've never done it that way.
Well, for this, because she's not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it coming?
Yeah, but I think you could have done it the other way, the way you always do it.
No, that's the way I was doing it.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay.
No?
It's not working.
I can't even read that. My eyes are so
That's
bad.
very strange.
It's not
It
it's
looks
not
better
readable.
on his
Allow,
screen.
hit the allow. You don't have that allow.
I
It's
don't
like
have
it-
that.
To stretch it to the big screen, it does something strange to it.
Nick, can you hit allow and see what happens?
It's
That's-
next to the blue box, on the left of the blue box.
You can't?
It doesn't,
That's you, but it's not
No,
showing.
not a
it's
link.
showing.
Why don't you
Well,
back
wait
out
a
of here?
minute, Wait a minute.
Oh, that looks
Oh,
good.
that was it. Where'd it go?
Now stop presenting. I want to try something
Did you
else.
unpin yourself?
No.
Let's not pin.
Oh.
Let's go to your little
Yep.
see share.
Yep.
This
I'll
is what I
go
was talking about
to
then.
either
Bear
a
with
window or
us.
the entire screen.
Okay, I went to the window last time.
Another
and
new
I clicked
technology.
here.
the hybrid
Yeah.
technology is
You
going
went
to
to
be
the window
another
last
learning
time?
curve for us because it's,
It is.
Share.
and it's more
You're
comfortable.
sharing your screen.
Now you go right there and you should be good.
There we go.
So that's weird. I did the exact same
Everyone
thing
has
last
their
time.
own screen, even if they're all. even
All
if
right,
half
we've got
the
it.
team is in the
Where
same
is it?
room.
You gotta
It's
go to
just
that. You gotta go to the
I'm there.
PowerPoint up here.
I am there.
Yeah,
Hey,
I know.
David.
What did I hit?
You just
What did I
closed
hit?
it.
Did
Oh,
I close the PowerPoint?
there it is. Okay. Yeah, but I see it and
Just
it's
give
not.
it a minute. It's got to go up into the ether,
Yeah, why is it doing
back
that?
down.
That
Well,
I
doesn't
don't
seem
know.
right.
It's
There, it
weird.
takes a while to get there.
Doesn't seem right, does it?
Well, I can give it orally. You guys all have it. I shared it with you
Yeah.
earlier today.
I looked at it.
You gave it to me too, right?
I
Let
gave
me
it
see
to
if I
you.
can-
Yeah.
If it comes up, great, and people have questions, that's fine. So it's not very extensive tonight anyway, but so as you all know, we're preparing for school to begin after Labor Day. And our maintenance staff has made great great progress so far. The rooms are clean. We're working on unpacking the CrossFit room where we had stored all of the furniture last year during COVID, and we're getting closer. We've got several rooms that are being painted, and we did have an E911 update, so all our phones are E911 compliant, so that was new extensions numbers. It doesn't change our school number, but
So
everything's.
by E911 compliant, does that mean if you were to call 911 from a room, would it say what room?
Yeah, that's my
Awesome.
understanding, yeah.
That's really cool.
Great.
Yeah. And we were the last school to come on board with that, I believe, in the SU. So that's up to date. I'll move to hiring updates. We have still some positions to fill. One special ed support staff member. We're looking for one case manager. We did fill the second grade position that was Patty's position. And I can bring that name to you now or later, whatever
Now works?
now works.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't think we have it elsewhere, do we?
Oh, do we?
No, I don't think we do. It's part of my report. So
Okay.
we're bringing a woman named Sandra Gould, I think it's pronounced.
Okay.
Sandy Gould or Gould. She is
Hold on.
currently in Minnesota and she's relocating back to Vermont. She lived in Vermont previously. She taught in Vermont previously.
Maybe we'll back up and.
Hi, Scott.
Scott, we're
Hey,
talking
Scott.
about a new hire for the second
Welcome.
grade.
Did you walk all over the school?
Oh,
Sorry.
sorry.
Sorry, Scott.
We almost did.
And you're presenting. Look.
Um,
Oh, you can do it,
You've done
David.
it.
Okay. All right, so we want to go to
Okay, so Christine
Oh, sorry.
just started her
Go to
report.
page, slide 3.
The big update was that the phones are now
One more?
E911
One more.
compliant, so that when they call 911, it'll tell dispatch
Perfect, thank
what room it's coming from. The address in
Flexibility.
the room.
Could be.
Weird change.
And
Yeah.
we are looking for special ed support staff and a case manager. Second grade has been filled, and
Yep,
we're
so
talking
we're-
about that right now.
Yeah, so
That's what you
we've
Thank
offered
you.
and she's accepted the position to Sandra Gould. She is relocating back to Vermont from Minnesota. So she taught here for several years previously. She's got a bachelor's degree from the University of Massachusetts and a master's degree from the University of Maine. And it was an ordeal to get her here. We had to find a place for her to live. And thankfully, we have a teacher in the district, in the SU, that is going to rent to her. So, yeah, so
Oh, that's great.
Good
she'll be
networking.
moving. Yeah, it is actually wonderful. So she'll be coming. So if you want to approve that tonight, that would be great.
Yeah, I'll put that under the items for
Okay.
action. and
Yeah,
let you
good
keep
idea.
going.
Yep. And then we do have one resignation. So we will be, which I shared with you electronically. Nikki, I printed you a copy.
Okay.
I don't know, I can certainly read it out loud or just share who it is with you.
It's okay to read it into the record, right?
Yeah.
Is it-
Yeah, I think I can read it in the record.
Okay. So it's addressed to Dr. Baker and myself. It says, I am writing to formally request release from my teaching contract for the upcoming 2021-2022 contracted school year. I'll be resigning from Hartland Elementary School immediately and discontinuing my employment with the district. As I've tried to make the adjustment and preparations for the transition from middle school science to teaching fourth grade, I have found an increasingly overwhelming, unhealthy, and unmanageable amount of stress and anxiety. The new stress, coupled with previously related challenges, ensure I will not be beneficial to students and colleagues with continued employment at HES. I've decided that resigning from education and reevaluating my career is most important for my and my child's well-being. I'm thankful for the career that Hartland has offered me over the past 14 years, but realize that I am no longer capable of being the effective educator the profession deserves. Please advise as to the best time to return my computer, etc. Best regards, Sarah Colby. So you'll also need to accept that later.
Yeah, and I'll just
Okay.
put that down.
Put that under.
Okay. So we do have that position that we need to fill, and we are interviewing for the anticipated position at this moment.
Next slide.
Next slide, just an update on Summer Academy, although it ended last week. I just wanted to let you know we had approximately 30 students attend. There's a picture of them on the bus, some of them. We were all, administrators got to take turns being on duty for a week at a time, which was really actually really nice being in a building with other administrators, because there were typically more than one of us there working together. Staff and students represented from all 4 buildings. The collaboration was incredible. Program went really well. I think Katie plans on sending out a survey to get feedback probably next week. So that's Summer Academy. Any questions on that? It went really well.
It sounds
Yeah,
like it.
just
You guys
that.
just sounded thrilled.
Yeah.
That's great.
It was great.
Awesome.
We had since the last time I saw you, we had our retreat. No, maybe I saw you after our retreat last time.
Wasn't it right before?
Right, or right before,
like
right
right
after,
before,
but
yeah.
I don't think
They were very close together.
they were very
Yes.
close together, but I don't think I shared all of what we did at our administrative retreat. So that's a picture of our coach, Barbara. I don't remember her last name.
Me neither.
Our Leader in Me coach. She took us through some information, and we did some work around how, the alignment of what we're doing at our school currently with Leader in Me, which is important to see how the connections are made. We worked on an SU-wide parent-student handbook. We will each have our own specific sections if pertaining to our buildings if needed. We worked on our collaborative practices planning, what that time after school is going to look like. We're not done with that work. We're going to continue it Thursday. Strategic planning and MTSS, we worked on those 2 items, and new teacher training. So onboarding of our new teachers. So those were the things that we worked on together. COVID updates. I'm sure you're all wondering what that's going to look like.
Can I
This
take a
is,
step back for a second?
Yeah, sure.
So I'm wondering this is a big picture question, to warn you. So a few years ago, we felt like we had a million initiatives that we were just splatting against the wall.
Mhm.
And they were all really important,
Mhm.
but there didn't seem to be any ties together. Do you feel like going into this year, granted we've been through a hell of a year, but do you feel like going into the next school year with the strategic plan done and like that implementing starting to happen, do you guys feel like all of those initiatives are starting to take shape and being less of a splat against the wall and more of a cohesive system?
I think so. I mean, we laid them all out. They're
Mhm.
all related.
Exactly.
They really are.
But I don't think we felt that way. I don't think everybody saw that way
Right.
a few years ago.
Right.
And I
Yeah.
wonder.
Yeah. And Barbara took us through an alignment activity actually that we're going to do with staff so that they can see those connections and how this is not one more thing. This is not a program. This is not an initiative. This is really, I guess I could describe it as, and she had a great visual, the bricks in the building are kind of the things that we're focused on, and the mortar is the framework that holds it all together. And so this is the framework that holds it all together.
Leader in Me.
Yeah.
So we're really excited.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
sounds like it. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Thank you.
Yeah. So this is what we know as of now. We're going to meet on Thursday, I believe, with the
Mhm.
COVID task force. We're getting the team back together. But I'm sure you all heard that the governor announced masking the first 2 weeks of school for everyone. And then when schools reach 80% vaccination rate, then vaccinated students and staff can unmask. I think we're going to talk about that, what that looks like, if that's the way we go. And we'll report back as soon as we
I
know
think we
those
have a
things.
lot of time on that.
Yeah.
Being that there's
Yeah.
no
Yeah.
vaccination in
gonna
sight
take
for
a
most of
while.
our population.
Right, for kids
Yeah.
under 12, it'll be at
Especially in the
least
K-8
until,
building.
Isn't it 80% of eligible?
Yeah.
So it's 80%
Oh, it's 80%
eligible.
eligible.
Yeah, so
But
no,
you-
the.
Oh, no, that's not cool.
But even that is going
Yes,
to
it's
be,
80%
so eligible, yeah,
What, I mean,
with
what
kids.
my question is,
Not
in a
eligible.
K-8,
So
in a
if you're
K-8 setting, how, right, that's easy in a high school, it's easy in an elementary school,
yeah.
but in a K-8 school, that's very, very complicated.
I mean, some
Right.
kids would be unmasked.
It's very complicated. I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around managing that
Exactly.
at this point, but we'll work through it.
I mean, we could say that as our
I think-
guidance, that it should be 80% of the building, not 80% of eligible.
Yeah.
Can we say that?
You certainly have the right to do that, yeah.
Yeah.
Because you know,
Because that's what we're trying
you
to
have the
protect
duty of
those.
care, you're trying to
Yeah.
take care of the kids, yeah.
Right.
And the Secretary of Education at the last meeting said that local boards have a lot of authority to
That would be
Have-
my next question.
have whatever, yeah, you can do whatever you feel necessary, or certainly empower the administration to do whatever's necessary. And I think 80% of a K-8 building, we know that until all those children under the age of 12 are vaccinated, we're not going to be anywhere near 80%.
Right.
But even so, I think I think you have the right to say that everybody stays in masks until the building is at 80%, right?
Yeah.
Even then, we have to figure out how we're gonna manage
Right.
that.
No.
Right.
Who's vaccinated, who's not, I mean, we
Right.
don't,
And some experts are saying 80% is not enough.
Right,
So
exactly.
that's the other, I think the state took a fairly conservative, or
Or
not
liberal,
conservative,
actually
but liberal, right?
Yeah,
Because I'm more liberal.
Right. Because there's no science behind 80%
Right,
in a contained building.
exactly.
It might be in a community, a
Right,
community spread,
right, but
but
yeah,
in a contained building, I mean, that would be like saying 80% of the people in your household are vaccinated, you're all good.
Right.
I don't think that's true.
Right.
I really
Yeah.
don't. And nobody's been able to point to the science.
and Delta's different,
And Delta's different.
so, yeah.
yeah.
I think it's interesting that he only said 2 weeks.
I said, I know.
He said the
What
first
is-
2 weeks of school.
What is
Right.
with the 2-week
I don't
thing?
know.
I think
And-
that
and
was
by the
more for
way-
high schools. It was to
Is that
buy
like
some
buying
time.
I think to buy some
I
time
think
by
it's buying
schools.
some time for high schools.
I think it's a
But it's pretty arbitrary.
quarantine amount of time.
Yeah,
You know,
the 14
everybody's-
days.
Oh.
right.
Everybody's been traveling,
Oh,
so
that-
get past 2 weeks,
Could be.
I think is
There's
the
some logic
That
there.
might have been the logic.
logic around it.
Yeah.
Nice insight there.
Yeah, okay.
I had a little
And-
advance warning, we were talking about it.
We'll be, David, you'll be, we had a
Yeah,
really
we'll
good
be- right.
communication system last year, and we'll get information out as soon as we.
Right, and we're hoping, if you haven't checked your email, there is a
Yeah.
special SU meeting coming up. We could sort of make, I think by then the administrative team and the nurses will have weighed in, and then we can make a final decision. But I know we talked about this at the Mount Scottney board and, the last night, now the Hartland board, and nobody's really pushing back. I think people want to be
Safe.
err on the side of
Yeah.
caution.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
And I've also gotten a couple of emails from parents, and I think I might have said this to you, Nikki, this morning when we were doing the building walkthrough, but they feel that if we get to a point where vaccinated have to wear masks and unvaccinated, the other way around, vaccinated don't have to wear masks, unvaccinated, it's really going to be identifiable for those kids and really not fair to those kids.
Right.
Because who knows the reason they haven't been vaccinated?
Exactly.
For a 6-year-old, it's certainly not their decision to get vaccinated or not vaccinated.
Right.
So the thought was, until we get to a fairly high percentage, and I don't know if 80 is the number, I guess we can decide that, but everybody just stays in masks.
Yeah.
So you'll
We'll
be
keep
hearing
you
from us,
posted.
yeah.
Yeah.
Will we still be
Um,
doing contact tracing?
And there'll still be contact tracing, right? Yeah, and the Vermont
That's
Department of
good
Health
news.
but you remember by the end of last year, well, not the end, but by a quarter of the way into the year, the schools were more or less doing their own contact tracing, or at least making those contacts, right?
We did a lot of the groundwork and made all the calls, met with BDH throughout the
But
process.
we always consult
Yeah.
VDH, and they said they would keep doing that. Because
Yeah.
that's the real issue, right, is who has to quarantine.
Right.
Mhm,
Right.
And that's what we don't want to have happen. We don't want buildings to shut down.
Right.
We don't want pods to shut down. So I think it's better to be safe than sorry.
How did it feel for the school to be doing the contact tracing?
It felt like a lot of
It was
work.
a lot of
on
work.
And
It
it
was
always
usually
happened
on
on a
the
weekend.
Yes, it did.
Yeah, happy on the weekend.
Since you asked.
I knew when I
I
saw
wanna
your guys'
know.
number on a weekend. It wasn't
I
good
mean,
news.
do we,
Yeah, and
Do
our,
we need
our
more
nurses were
resources?
great.
Yeah.
We gave them a small stipend to help with that work, but, and I think we'll have to do that again.
And
This year.
and it was a great effort. I mean, people helped, but it still takes a long time to
Yeah.
get through it all. Okay, last slide, just kind of,
Beth, I'm just gonna say, You don't need to raise your hand, because as the only board member that's not here, just speak up when you need to speak up. I feel like it's not fair if we're not looking at the board and.
Stand up.
And I will say there is a difference of you guys being in person and me. Everyone's talking a lot faster than they did when we were all remote
Yeah,
Yeah.
I bet.
and more
Are you having
conversational.
trouble
So just be
hearing it?
aware of that, of other public people trying to hear it. It ends up being
Yeah.
a little bit quicker.
Because we're just conversing, but it goes
Yeah.
across quickly. That's a good point.
Yeah, we'll,
Thank you, Beth.
we'll slow down.
We'll
That's
have to
good.
get better at that.
Last couple of items, which are coming up as items for discussion later, so I'll just quickly touch upon. Anti-Racism Task Force has been meeting in our homework groups. Nikki's part of one, Colleen's part of one. I think this whole side of the table. We're going to have our whole group meeting on the 18th. So we're going to report out our homework and present what we've learned and done. Our building committee, our preliminary building committee met today. We did a walkthrough. We're going to have a future meeting with the greater community members August 25th. And so there'll be more to report on that later on. And I put fall sports because that's come up a few times. People are asking, and we have to make some decisions based on our spring interest inventory. We have 8 boys and 11 girls
For 7-8 soccer.
for 7-8 soccer. So it's a question of, do we combine and run co-ed programs, or do we partner with another school in our SU?
And how are the other schools looking for?
I think Weathersfield is also struggling for numbers. I think Windsor's okay.
How many here?
8 boys and 11 girls.
It's a big one soccer team.
It's
2
a-
soccer teams?
No, it's 11 on the field for soccer,
You really need 15
Yeah.
for subs and everything.
unless you're playing 8 on 8, which,
Yeah.
you know.
Okay,
At some point. Yeah.
So just
I just
some
showed my
things to
soccer
think
mom.
about.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, and that concludes the report. So you can stop sharing, David, and I
Okay.
never stop sharing, so stop too.
Okay, David, you're up.
Yeah, Christine shared most of the pieces that I would have shared. I mean, really, I think the next week or two with our administrative team will be sorting through the post-administrative retreat items, because as Nikki said, there are a lot of initiatives and just trying to pull all that together and have it be coherent. But I felt it was a really productive retreat. And also we are spending a lot of time, certainly Angie and Brittany are spending a lot of time on also what will be our reporting mechanism with all the initiatives that are happening. How are we going to track the data? How are we going to be able to tell our boards that what we're trying to do is working? So we spent a lot of time on that. And I know you're continuing, Angie, to spend a lot of time on that. I also think summer school went well. I made a few guest appearances. It was quite an interesting
It was fun.
situation, but it was really, really fun. The summer food program is coming to a close Friday. We've got to do a little bit of work on that for next year because we didn't get the access to that food that we really wanted to. Summer school was great. The rec center got a good delivery every day, but some of the other sites, 2-3 meals delivered, and it really should be more than that. So I know Craig really wants to improve that program, and whether it's through public relations or figuring out better ways to deliver it. I think too, the summer before this summer, we did door-to-door delivery, and I don't know whether that spoiled everybody, but people certainly weren't coming out to the sites to grab the food. And I don't know, Beth, whether you have any thoughts about that, but I know Craig's feeling pretty disappointed in the numbers.
Yeah, I have lots of thoughts, but
Why you asked.
yeah, no, and I think we can definitely PR around the food program is always needed. But I think really investigating alternative delivery methods, being like weekly pickups. So that means giving full grocery bags full of groceries, basically, with the components of meals instead of actual prepared meals and things like that. So I think that's something that, Craig probably needs some I know. Yeah, I would guess it's trickier.
to work
So
with is
so
tricky,
it's just making sure he has support to maybe investigate those kinds of different alternative methods
Right.
for food delivery in that sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think just keep supporting him and trying to dig a little deeper in how to
Yeah.
make it as successful as possible.
Yeah, I mean, he still definitely does a great job. And
Oh, definitely.
we did with the summer school. I mean, we were serving 100 kids at the summer school. So it's not like we didn't serve kids. It's just that he would have liked to have gotten, those meals out to the other areas. I think he was probably between summer school, the Hartland Rec Center, the Windsor Rec Center. He probably served 150 meals a day. That's not terrible, but it would be nice to increase that if we could. I do have the financials tonight, but I think we put that on the agenda, right? So
Yeah, I did.
when we get there, I'll go over that in terms of how Hartland ended the FY 21 year, which would have ended June 30th of 21. And we can talk about that. And I think that's it. We did, speaking about COVID, and I know that's on the agenda too, to kind of give a little more detail on that, even though we touched on it. But we did have a summer school case. A student contracted COVID, and we had to, we certainly had to get the word out. That student had to quarantine. Fortunately, no other students did. And we also now have one of our central office staff members who just tested positive for COVID. And this is a person who was vaccinated, but that really shook, I think, the central office, because we've got folks there who are struggling with, much like everybody has their issues with people you're taking care of at home, or you're visiting the elderly, or you have somebody in a nursing home. So that put the central office on red alert that we're not out of the woods yet. And part of the problem, I think, and it was the case with this particular case, that people are still going to travel. And under the governor's emergency order, we had restrictions in place, right? That if you travel to a red zone, you had to quarantine for 7 days with a test or 14 days without a test. I mean, we don't have those restrictions anymore. So again, I think it's just another reason to be a little more conservative on the masks and to just be more cautious with our kids. And because we're really not out of the woods yet. So I think that's it for me until we get to those other items.
I had a question. How many meals were we delivering last summer?
Last summer, we probably did about 100, about 250 maybe.
So 100 more than we're
About 100
doing.
more than we're doing this summer.
Wow.
I mean,
But we were doing some door-to-door delivery, right? So that was helping.
Right.
And
Yeah.
everybody was stuck.
And everybody was stuck in the
Yeah.
house.
Go anywhere.
Couldn't go shop, right? I mean,
Well,
they could go shopping, but
Yeah,
it was tricky.
but nobody was traveling.
No.
Everybody stayed local.
I mean, yeah, for some kids, it was something to do because we weren't doing other stuff.
Exactly.
Right.
There was nothing to do.
I think that seems that.
Yeah. And I also have the food service budget that I'm going to share as part of your financial report.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
so that'll give you a sense of where we landed with that.
So I'm going to admit that I messed up on the items for discussion, and hopefully, one of the items for discussion was the legislative update, and that was put on the agenda, but we didn't get the invites out timely.
No,
so-
to John and Elizabeth,
Yeah,
but we
so
can do
that's
that next
off,
time.
but that will be on another agenda, and I hope that there's no one that was eagerly waiting for that. We will get it. Okay, so items for discussion. We have an equity discussion, and this is, to say it's fallout from our retreat isn't the right term, but it's something that came out of the retreat that we felt needed to continue to be put in front of us, and that's just what programs are fair and how to make our programs accessible to all. And so some examples of programs that are not currently accessible to all is everybody can join band, but not all students can afford an instrument. So that makes it inaccessible to some. And then the winter outdoor programs is also a transportation accessibility issue and a financial accessibility issue. with the cost of skis and the cost of tickets and lessons. So those were two of the big ones, and there were other ones that came out probably on the minutes. But so we said that we would bring it to this meeting so that it stays on our radar. Does anybody have any further thoughts on it? What do we do?
I mean, I'd love to hear too from, from staff, from parents. I wonder if there's a way to do a survey or something asking about equity. And I mean, we could just, amongst us, we came up with a few, but there may be ones that we're not even thinking of.
Are the other schools having this discussion, or are we?
No, I think, it's certainly
Across
come
the
up.
state.
Yeah, it's come up, yeah. Because the equity question is, very prevalent in the state right now. And so people are looking at other ways, not just around race or special ed, but it's really about access, somewhat about poverty, and so it just it's happening other places.
I guess one thing that comes to my mind is the transportation.
Right, that's huge.
And not just
Yeah, for
after
ski.
school, but I mean the regular school bus transportation. And with the trajectory of student numbers, what I've experienced, what I think I see, I should say, is an abbreviation of what we know as the school bus routes. They kind of get shorter but that may not, it may be a decision that's made in the summer with a bus survey, but it might not serve reality. The bus used to do things like take a student to the grandparents on a certain day of the week. But if the route is adjusted and that grandparent is not a stop now and can't be anywhere near the stop, that's problematic to me. And so I don't, the school board doesn't have much to do with bus routes, honestly, except that I think we need to insist that they make every effort to allow those kind of real life transportation, the way they can be helpful. And I think that the bus company's priorities are perhaps different than the school district's priorities.
But our administrators do isn't it Linda works?
Yeah, she does.
Linda and Heidi work on the bus route.
Primarily Linda. She sent out
Okay.
a survey this summer to parents,
Right.
asking them about if they're planning to, send their
Take the
children on the bus.
Right.
And then, she knows the routes in and out. And so,
And a lot of the people.
and we will, Mike Gaudette's pretty collaborative. I mean, if there's a stop that needs to happen, I just call him up and ask. And if it's safe, we can do it. Sometimes it's just like there's no turnaround.
Yeah, I think
Those are
Webster
the-
Road was
yeah.
a victim of that. We lost our bus on the road.
It was a time decision. That was a time decision to shorten the route.
And what is this gets off of equity, but it is kind of still on equity. What is the length of our bus routes? Like how long?
They're roughly, I want to estimate 40 minutes.
Okay. Except for the ones.
Some are a little shorter, some are a little longer.
Yeah.
Winter's longer for sure. I think one was almost 50 minutes.
Yeah, it's getting close to an hour
yeah.
for ours.
Yeah,
So-
we talked about 3 buses, but it would the kids would be on the bus
Oh, gosh.
for an hour and a half.
Well, and that's the problem with our ridership of our buses. that
Right.
Parents aren't willing to let kids sit on it for an hour.
Yeah, I understand that. I'm not an expert at that either.
Yeah.
I can see that's a real wall to be up against.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that Webster Road wasn't on the route.
It's on the route, but we drive to the corner. So
Yeah.
they stop there, but They used to come down kind of partway through, and we'd always kind of wish
It's
that.
not terribly
was. Is that a
helpful though,
turnaround issue?
honestly. Having to have to get in your
Right,
car.
if I have to
and
get in my
go
No,
car,
it's
and
tough.
go,
half a
Sure.
mile up.
I wondered about it a lot.
Because it took an additional 10 minutes to send that bus out.
Yeah, I think when we're talking transportation, I don't see it so much during the school regular scheduled school day, but after after school activities, that's really
That's-
there's no after school activity bus that's going to go drop your kid back at your house at 5.
Right.
Or whatever. So that is huge because I think that's a lot of parents can't get there at those times, or even
I
if they
agree.
could afford their kids to participate. That I think is probably one of the more deciding factors versus the regular school day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that
I
would be
agree.
a game changer for,
Christine or something. That's the bus wrong.
I think that would be a game changer for some people that we had the sports one place and the kids the other place for an hour, and then they have to get back to the school to do a sport, or closing that gap would make sports accessible to some kids that couldn't.
Otherwise participate.
Yeah, they get out at 2:45. The sport practice doesn't start until 4, and they have to figure out something to do in that gap time.
Mhm.
And I've always wished that the rec center would close that, because, when you don't want to send your 5th grader back and forth on foot from the rec center to the school. The 8th graders maybe.
I totally agree with a late bus. But we should remember that we had a late bus and nobody rode on it.
Right.
And so that's why we don't have, I mean, there may be some other part of this puzzle that we need to delve into, why didn't people use the late bus when we had it?
Mhm.
Yeah. And has anything changed?
Because we ran that for 2 years.
We ran it for 2 years and it just,
Had like one kid.
there was nobody used it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was when the program
That was
was here.
Yeah.
We had
Art
the
was
after-school
here.
program here.
And
many
kids
years
could
ago
go
was it?
home on the bus. Well, at 6:00,
I'm sorry, I don't know,
6.
6 years ago?
Yeah.
I wasn't here.
6 and 7.
I'm wondering, when did transportation become legally the jurisdiction of the supervisory union
When did that?
and not,
That
It was
a while
after
ago.
that time.
it was after that? Yeah.
I'm
I
gonna
think it
say
was
that was
after
at
that
least
time.
6 or 7 years ago, maybe even
Yeah.
longer than that.
Yeah. But when did it become centralized? And
2 years ago.
because, I mean, when I was here, I was still communicating with Mike Godet. So
Yeah, it might have been.
it's been in the last 4 years.
It's been during my time here, yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, so in the
So,
past,
yeah.
right, so that late bus was in the days of our district's communication directly with transportation.
Right.
And now
Right.
we have
We
some,
I still.
we just don't, I understand
Yeah.
you, right, but the contracting is
Right.
obviously another area.
Yeah.
And I guess, yeah, it's not even this board really.
Yeah.
It's too bad.
Well, yeah, I mean, are we feeling, I don't know that if the contract is SU level versus Hartland level, if that's how that might be impacting things. Or if it is.
I mean, if we said we wanted to do a late bus again, we would have to work that out with,
Oh, I see.
with the, I assume,
I'm,
and pick up that cost. Obviously we'd have to pick up that cost.
I can go back to that late bus. It may not be what would be helpful.
Right.
If it's a working parent issue, they can come at 6 and pick up a kid. They can't come at 2:45, take them to, the rec, and then take them back for a sports thing at 3:30. That's the thing that
They
working
take,
parents
they
can't.
take them to the rec, right? It's getting
Yes,
back.
take them to,
Yeah.
but they don't have a way to get back.
But we do bus, well, if it's a home game, right? We do bus kids to the away games for 7, 8.
For 7, 8.
And so
Yeah,
they
for
could
7,
easily,
8. But the
they don't go to
7,
the
8
rec.
could walk
yeah.
it's the fourth, fifth,
Yeah.
sixth graders can't get back from the rec
Mhm.
to do a practice.
Yeah.
And they, share rides and stuff for parents that are at home parents.
That makes sense because our rec numbers, not that we're trying to benefit the rec, but our rec numbers have been plummeting. And I don't know if it's because students don't want to play sports or if it's because
John does say that though.
the kids don't want to play sports.
Well, yeah, he
No,
thinks
the
that's part of
timing
it.
is horrible. As a parent of two kids that would love to play a soccer or love to
Yeah.
do whatever, it's not. I can't work an 8-hour day and then coordinate my kids getting there and actually trying to feed them and then get them home at a time that's an appropriate hour for them to sleep. Like it's just like
Yeah.
it's what gives within the weekly schedule. Do
Yeah.
you just decide not to do?
I mean, they do some things are done right, like the younger kids are earlier than the older kids, that makes sense in a family schedule.
Right,
But,
but it's not
once a
that case for most sports because it's the working parents that are coaching.
Oh,
So, yeah, so like when we're playing soccer, we're not getting home till 8.
Yeah, because the volunteer coaches
Right.
have to
The
do it
coaches aren't
after work,
available.
and that's,
Right.
right, so, I
I
mean, some
forgot about
people,
that's what drives the whole thing,
Uh-huh.
and they gotta have the volunteers.
some people have
Anyway.
talked about, could we hire coaches? But I don't
We
know
can't hire
who-
anybody.
I don't know who is out
Would be
there looking
great.
for an hour and a half job, I mean, so
I
it's
think
we
paying
really
the
are
rec-
beholden to the volunteer.
I think
coaches.
paying do the later sport, pay the rec a little extra to bring the kids back for their practice might be the more cost-effective thing. They have bands, they can put some kids in.
There could
They
just be
do.
like a walking train too, when the weather's good, and
Yeah.
when it's not, there's
It's
a
the winter.
van.
Or walking train.
you know.
Sometimes the rec program ends at about 5 generally.
Yeah, pre-COVID, it was 5:30.
Yeah.
COVID, it was earlier.
Is Craig one of
I mean, they
these?
have a van. The rec has their.
They do have a
Correct.
van.
Feed 'em.
Yep.
You can claim for dinner.
An afternoon snack.
Yeah, I mean, we can start serving in 3 meals a day.
Yeah, exactly.
I
Don't tell
honestly
Craig
think
that
that there
today,
may
though.
be a demand for that.
I'd drive my kids down.
That might be the most
Really, come
popular
on,
meal of the
everybody.
day.
Yeah, I mean, if you did
As you
it,
get home from work,
I mean,
and say,
Bring mommy.
let's get out of the cafeteria.
yeah, lots of schools will do it, so it's
discussion, but I do
it's a grab and
think
go.
That's a good idea.
there's value in that.
Lots of families will do it, like schools will do it as a grab and go or an after school alternative.
Yeah,
So they can get it at the end of the school day. So if they're just like really hungry before practice, they can grab it, or they can just take it home
Yeah.
on the bus and have it for dinner.
it's a little bit of a labor issue, but it could be done.
Absolutely, yeah. But it would just be weighing out what's the reimbursement, what's the participation, and will it pay for itself? And how much do we want to contribute if it doesn't?
And it seems like, not to switch topics right away, but the band thing seems like the easiest thing to answer. Can
Maybe
we
you might want to pick some low-hanging fruit. Yeah,
Cover
that's a
the,
little easier.
cover the riddles if kids,
What was
I
that? Say
think it
that
would
again?
add up, but it's worth
I
investigating.
don't know how you do it. Cover the rental if kids can't afford it
Yeah.
and want to do it. I mean, how do you identify that kid?
Yeah.
Would Jamie have a sense of that, or, I mean, something that you could do
Oh, she would know.
I think
Yeah.
more
you have to-
anonymously, or?
You have, I think you cover everyone.
You're
Right.
right, that's right.
Yeah, you just
Yeah.
rent all the instruments for the kids who
Well,
say they want to
Can we
play.
afford to do that? I guess maybe the thing is to look at how much that would be.
We could get, I bet we could get an
Depends
estimate.
on
When you waived it, it was
Kid
18
plays.
bucks a month.
Does, doesn't it?
It depends
what
Well-
instrument you're renting.
It'll
Yeah.
open up what
18
instruments
times
happen too,
180.
right? I
That's
mean,
just for
some
one-
kids maybe
That's
it's
one
a different
instrument.
instrument, the cheapest one.
20,
Intentionally.
so on their
They won't do
site,
that if the school's paying.
$23 a month. Several instruments are available for just $23 per month.
Yeah, Times 10 months, $230 times.
Most are 30,
How many
so
kids in the band? About
it's
100.
Well, you would
360 a year.
How much is a
4 through
bassoon?
8.
Bassoon's a little bit more,
How much
They
is a
keep them
bassoon
all year
price?
if they,
What's
they keep
100
them all
times
year,
230?
right?
so it's 360 a year per kid.
It's rent
Three-
to own.
Okay,
And we've
360
got-
3,000.
per kid.
How many do we have?
Would you want 4th,
That's a lot.
4th through 8th?
I mean,
Oh,
yeah,
That's what I would
I
do,
would think.
'cause that's
So
when they
how
access
many
it,
do we
right?
have participating?
It's
right now?
100 kids.
We said about 100
I
kids.
think I can do the math for you.
Okay.
2,500.
What is that? I have it in my calculator.
About 23,000.
Right.
About 20.
360
Yeah.
times.
Well, or three,
I gotta add.
we have
it.
100 kids,
Oh,
that's
I tell you, you know.
$36,000.
If you have three, yeah. If you, yeah.
That's not
It's not,
small.
and
But it's,
not
remember, it's only
four,
10 months a year,
13.
though.
15.
Well,
Or do you
the
rent
kids-
year round?
Keep it year
You
round,
keep it
because you
year
want to be able to practice over the
They-
summer.
I
But
know.
it's also rent to own. So
There
it's
is-
kind
there
of-
is rent to own.
Now, if,
17,
would Ellis give you a
16,
break if you were if
Doing the whole
was doing
school.
the whole program? Like, I
Or doing the
know
whole program. yeah.
the
And
South
the other
Rush
thing to consider, I know
provide-
my school that when I was younger did this, is that they actually purchased several instruments.
That's
Right.
what I'm wondering.
That's
So,
You
like,
can
I
do
know I
that.
played French horn and I never rented a French horn.
Right,
Right.
I always had my they just let me use it for the year.
yeah.
And
And
We
that
had
was
a,
that.
Especially
so-
those unique.
But like all
instruments.
the kids that played the smaller instruments, I think like flute and clarinet and those kinds of things, those got rented, I believe. And so it was like the bigger expensive instruments seemed like the school actually owned, and that probably was cheaper than renting everyone instruments.
Yeah,
Yeah.
my school district owned all the instruments, and you just, there was like a big room, and you would just go in and pick it, at the beginning of the year, you'd go in and pick out what you needed.
That's how you prioritize
Um,
roughly $50,000.
$50,000.
That's
a
if
year.
everybody plays.
If every-
And you need to give everybody the
And
opportunity.
you need to,
Right,
right, so that's an important thing to think
Right.
about it.
Because I'm sure that does block a lot of kids from playing.
and
Oh,
that's
sure.
with the rental prices that they're giving the individual family.
Right.
I think it'd be worth a call to find out if they,
If
if they have
If they
contract prices
contract
for a
with
whole school.
Schools. Yeah.
Yeah, Well,
That might be a little more reasonable.
because a lot of kids rent for a year and then turn the instrument in, and so could
Right.
we rent those instruments? So, yeah.
When are you gonna comment?
Yeah, she was just saying that you'll own them after 2 years.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
that's not,
The
that's
school would
not
own
what
them.
we would do.
Right, yeah, the school would need to own them.
Well,
Yeah, of course, and then you could give it to someone else, so it would,
that's
there'd
interesting.
be a big upfront
It would be an upfront.
expenditure, but
Then it would just
eventually
be
it
an
would be
investment.
fairly self-sustaining.
I mean, you'd need to put some staff time into their upkeep and cleaning and all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff.
Talk to
but-
Jamie about
We,
it.
we send them out.
Well, I think
No, we
Ellis
send them
does,
out.
yeah,
Yeah,
Ellis does all
Mhm.
of that for you.
Included in the rental, right?
It's,
Yeah.
yeah, it's included in the rental, but then after the rental, they'll still coordinate.
Or you do a service
do a-
contract with them.
Yeah, they do a pickup every Monday and they grab instruments and then bring them back. And I was intimidated by the prices on that, but it really wasn't. I mean, when Trevor had repairs, they were all covered as part of the rental contract, but they showed me how much they cost. And I was like, okay,
It's
yeah,
not a big,
it's not insane. Yeah. So this is an interesting discussion.
so I would love to see that. And then ski, exponential numbers, I assume, like if
Yeah,
running-
skiing
to
is,
run those
skiing
numbers.
is a tough one, because it is very expensive
And
to
isn't
do
it-
it for everybody.
So it would be expensive.
And it's,
And transportation.
it's K,
And
it's K8.
transportation. And does everybody, the other thing that you get into with that is like, does everybody want to
No.
skate?
No.
And so then you
No.
even if you're trying, you still have two groups of kids who are doing different things.
I
And-
do, the one thing that I personally feel really strongly about is creating future Vermonters.
Mhm.
And I
Yeah.
do think that
Yeah.
the ski
Yeah.
program,
Skiing is a
huge.
part of that.
Helps
is
to
a-
do that.
yeah,
I
because
know.
if you're a Vermonter and you
Winter
don't,
sports. period.
if you're not capable, if you're not trained
Yep.
to access our scenery year round, you're not gonna be a happy Vermonter.
Yep.
So, and you see that with people that grew up here all the
Mhm.
time and are miserable, in their 40s, and they're like, I just want to move to South Carolina where it's warm. So
Yeah.
Sure.
There's
Well, we
ways to
could- we could
We
do-
can get the numbers.
Yeah, we could get the numbers and then, because a good time
Budget time.
is budget time.
Yeah.
Because that's when if you want to,
Yeah.
and we did say we want to prioritize our budgeting around our strategic plan and goals, right? So
Mhm.
equity is a big part of that.
Yep.
So we could easily say, okay, here are 2 or 3 things we want to do
Yeah.
next year that will increase equity in our school. I like that idea.
I'll work on the ski numbers.
And these are all really grantable things. Like these, like getting kids music, equitable music and equitable access to skiing are things
Probably.
that people will write checks for. you know, as well. So I think it's just the problem is that you want it to continue. You want it to be sustainable. So I think, you know, looking like, I'm just thinking like the Ottaquechee Health Foundation, you know, like what, you know, is there some sort of outside funding as well that could support that, or even just like talking to Suicide Six, and you know, Woodstock Inn, like they have deep pockets to say, yeah, we can cut this price, you know. So I think it's worth trying to talk about what our goal is and what we want to do, because in the end, we're actually making future customers for them.
Yeah.
So they will actually make money off of this in the end.
Yeah. And that's it.
point.
We're training Vermonters. Like,
Yeah. So it's really just figuring out the pitch and getting it to them.
yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to move us forward because I think.
Wait a minute.
Oh, yeah.
Wait, sorry.
That's okay.
The other thing that I should have brought it up earlier, but you know, the universal meal thing is really
Same thing.
We
Yes.
started to talk about the budget season approaching and what these numbers entail, and we were at our calculators, you know, for a few minutes. You know, it would be, I don't think just because we have been promised universal meals this year as part of USDA's work, that we shouldn't become complacent about that.
Mhm.
And so, and we don't know what the Vermont legislature is going to achieve.
I don't think
So
you have
we
to
have-
worry about me allowing that.
I know. We have universal meals this year and next year, or just this year?
Just 21, 22.
This year.
Okay, just 21, 22. Okay,
I shouldn't say
Um,
just. It was all last year too. So we,
right.
I'd kind of like to go through that calculator exercise with,
With food,
yeah, right now, what would it be to eliminate that cash pipeline?
What's more complicated than
But-
that?
it is, because we can qualify and make it like it. Because if we just said we're feeding everyone, and we don't actually apply to be a universal meal site, that would be foolish of us. Like there's ways to do it different ways, so you get a different reimbursement rates for it. So it's worth the effort to do the groundwork around it.
Yeah.
So
Of
you're
course.
not just running raw numbers in that
I
sense.
guess, I mean, part of my hesitation is that it's a lot of work to run those numbers and to get real numbers. And so.
But I'm already yeah.
Fingers crossed.
I'm working with Hunger Free Vermont, because I don't know how many schools I've talked to now that are all like, how can we just keep this? So Hunger Free Vermont's like on the front, really conscious of knowing that all these schools are working on this. And so they're trying to hear from the feds and from the state of what numbers can schools use for different qualifying factors around universal meals. So the last thing I heard, it was the direct certification rate if you want to do the community eligibility option, and you can use last
the
year's.
TV.
So you can use last year's
Yeah, touch the
community
TV,
numbers,
maybe that'll
direct numbers. So that means, which could be good, because if people were suffering in the pandemic, your direct certification number might be higher than it might be this year or next. So that's what I last heard. And we just need to dig in those direct certification numbers, find our highest month, and see where, if it qualifies. And that's something, I can work on since I'm working with
That would be great.
too, but I don't know how, and it's also just, we have to just like, some of it is just like a waiting game around USDA and what they decide,
Yeah.
because there are bills going federally as well as statewide for universal meals as well. So, but I don't want to sit on our laurels just keeping our fingers crossed that they're going to pass. I'd rather be teed up to be ready to offer it next September or the following September.
So Beth, from a timeline standpoint, if we want to have things teed up, when do we need to be teeing those up?
Sure. First, I need to get home sometime, and then
That's fine. I can leave it out there. I mean,
Yeah,
like,
I'm not sure.
are we
I think
talking-
yeah, I think we could do it anytime, but I think we would want to do it around making sure we have really good numbers in the budgeting season, so we're prepared for it.
So
And
that
then
really is October.
it's
October,
happening. Yeah.
really.
So it's happening.
Okay.
And so that's my guess. But again, I would want to pull in Hunger Free to get some consultation on it.
So should we make that a goal to reach out to Hunger Free and get moving on that by our October meeting?
Thanks.
Is
Can you
that-
send me a note about that? Make sure I do that.
Yep.
I'm like, I don't even have a notepad right
Purposes
now. Like,
of
I'm a little out of
this-
sorts.
For the purposes of this meeting here, and, like getting those numbers, those, what did Beth just call those numbers?
The direct certification numbers?
Certification numbers, right?
Yeah,
Isn't that
the
something
main office has that.
the principal's office has?
No,
No.
the SU office. has
Yes.
everything.
Central office.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we have the numbers. Craig has the numbers.
So we can,
Mhm.
our administrators can find that for us.
Yeah.
It's not one of our board members doing that research. That's what I'm trying to find.
Yeah, no,
No.
no, no, no.
No, it's not, I wouldn't be having my board member hat on. I'd be having my professional hat on for any of this. And it's
Hunger Free Vermont.
coordinating with Hunger Free and making sure we get the clear understanding of what is required when. That would be my role of just interpreting all those rules and making sure that we're crossing those T's at the right time.
That's the big lift.
Yeah, I would still feel better if it was our administrators doing that. I mean, it's their job to do that.
It's my job too.
Actually, Beth's
We
job too.
have Craig.
Yeah, that's what I get paid to do.
Yeah, that's what Beth gets paid to do, is to help people do
He would,
this.
in a normal time, if we gave him that task, he'd call Beth, because that's
Yeah.
her office. That's where he'd get that information.
Craig would call me or other, yeah. So that's what who I'm getting calls from right now, are principals and food managers saying, how do we make this happen? And then I call up Hunger Free and ask the same questions.
I wouldn't be leaning on her otherwise.
Yeah.
No, I'll
Okay.
holler. I'll push the administration if I need to. You don't need to worry about it. No one will
Yeah,
run me over right now.
but I think if you had those three goals, we did the food, universal food,
Mhm.
we did the music, and we did the skiing. We just looked at that around budget time.
Yep.
And saw what that would, add to the tax rate, however we wanted to do it, right? I mean, we could look at that.
Right.
yeah.
And after-school transportation,
Yes.
And after, we could add
from the
Right.
rec back to the
school,
Hartland
right?
fields.
And food.
Yeah, we got the food.
Well, no, like
Oh, I see, feeding,
The
yeah.
afternoon meals.
So
Yeah.
we talked about putting together a survey, and I honestly feel like we can even phrase the question as pie on the sky. Would it help your family to pick up a meal at the school between 4:30 and 5:30?
Mhm.
Or
My guess is they don't want to. The food service would say they're there, so it would be from close of school.
Yeah.
And they'd
Or
keep
would-
someone there till 4 or something like that. So
Yeah.
your kid would just pick it up and it would be done.
Yeah,
Right.
but
It would be more of
would
a
that
grab and go
value your-
situation.
Right,
versus
is there any
them
value in
coming
that?
in for a meal?
Dinner to
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to do it.
Because the
Yeah.
staff then would just be sitting there waiting for kids, and it's
Yeah, no, I don't want to make that. I mean, you
Preferably-
could have a situation where, whoever's in the office till the last minute has a fridge there for chucking lunches out or something.
Yeah.
I don't expect the food staff to have to do that. But I think it's just a really interesting question, because I know so many families that are starting to cook dinner at 4:00 in the afternoon because of the
Logistics.
logistics,
Or at 8:00,
or at 8:00.
right? I mean, it's just.
And then that goes to how ready our kids are for school the next morning,
Yeah.
because like we've got kids going to bed at 9:30 or 10 because they're eating at 9.
Yep.
So I just think it's an interesting thing to look into, especially if we can get reimbursed for it. Okay, moving on. The next item of discussion is student population.
Okay, I'm just writing these down so I don't lose them.
Yeah,
Do you want up-to-date enrollment numbers?
I think that's what that's
Okay.
for. I don't.
I think that's what
So-
you were,
Yes.
yeah, I think that's what you were asking.
Yes, there
So
is
we
student
are,
population.
So I cross-checked today the list of ins and outs with what's in Power School. In Power School, we have 251. And on the list, there are 7 more that have not, they don't get put in Power School until you get an official record request.
Okay.
So there are 7 that have not completed that process
So
yet,
that's
as of now, 258.
So you could be up to
Possibly
258.
258.
And what were you what were you?
We were 250 something this year due to COVID. But if you think about the graduating class being 36
Yeah,
Yeah,
and you're bringing in 25,
we're gonna
you're gonna
you're gonna lose.
for a while, unless we have move-ins, which is
Which you
entirely
could-
possible.
sometimes
What
that
about
first-
high school? No, what's our high school number?
That big class just graduated. too.
I don't know that I have those.
That was a big class. that
It was,
graduated.
yeah.
Plus, that takes
Um,
the summer to sugar off too, but
I can
you
work
should
on
know
getting
that by
that.
September.
Yeah.
My favorite New England expressions.
Um,
Yeah, that's not easy.
Well,
I'm
let me
just,
see if I can
I'm just
figure it
curious
out.
since our budget gets divided by the whole amount, not just the building amount.
I can see what I have in my notes from I had last year.
That wouldn't show up in public school, obviously, right?
No, but I could probably figure it out from last year's numbers.
And did we get any of our homeschoolers back? Have we reached out to them and asked them if they're coming back?
Yeah.
We got a few. We didn't get them all.
Yeah.
But we did get some back, yeah.
Yeah. So we would expect that.
And some of this could change as the guidance comes out, right? I
Mhm.
mean, people
Yeah.
felt better at the end of the year, and now they're starting to get nervous again.
Right.
Yeah, that's true.
So that was-
Although I think our record of COVID in the classroom stands for itself.
Yeah, it was good. It really was across the SU. It was.
I mean, so
it was
like,
good.
I get that parents might get nervous, but it's not the
Right.
same nerves as it was last August when we
No,
had
God,
no
no.
idea what we were doing and we're winging it.
As one of our principals stated last night at her board meeting, she said, last year at this time, we knew a lot less and we made it happen.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
I thought that was
So much more
great.
now.
I just, the
So,
panic that we were in last year at this
Yeah.
point.
I was just thinking about that as I was driving to this meeting, actually.
Yeah.
I think we're roughly at 148
Okay.
high school. Was that?
And what was that as
That's FY
compared to?
22
Right.
that we prepared, so I just totaled those up. And those are exiting,
Okay.
148.
So we have.
So is
really-
that net up or net down? Net down. it looks
It's
like.
probably down a little bit.
Yeah, a little
Yeah.
bit.
So we're
Yeah. But the numbers going into high school are still the largest numbers in the school.
And the
Yeah, 148.
Yeah.
Well, in our school,
We have
the middle school, the 5-8 have the larger class sizes.
right.
Over the last 4 years, it's.
Yep.
We're trending
We're trending.
25,
We're trending
Right.
down,
26.
yeah. Which is, as we've discussed, a
Right.
tough place to be because
It's not quite
you
small
want
enough.
2 classes, but it's not
Right,
cost effective to have 2 classes.
right. So I don't know, I didn't get a chance to, I don't think there's much for sale in Hartland. I don't,
There's not.
people come and stay, retire here and stay here. Um,
And a lot of what was for sale got bought up by out-of-staters.
By out-of-staters, right, who aren't going to live here full-time.
No,
So I don't know what we do about that.
I think it's a state problem. We
Yeah.
do our
Yeah.
part in
Oh, it
raising
is.
Vermonters, and the
Yeah.
state needs to help us.
Yeah, I mean, I think
People
every
stay.
community has a
On
role to
Realtor,
play
there's
in
23.
housing though, and
Mm-hmm.
I think
Realtor,
Heartland
there's
has a role to
23,
play in
but that could
thinking about
include
how do we
land.
create housing
Right.
that people can
Let me
afford.
just do
Yeah.
And also
Yeah.
those.
single family homes.
I mean, right now,
13.
There's there's nothing.
it's so overpriced, you can't, even apartments, I mean,
3 of those are over a
I
million
know,
dollars.
I
I
know.
wonder how you go about figuring out how much housing the community builds and how many people you want.
Hmm.
Or how much is needed, right? And
you have a
it's not
plan.
a board question.
No,
Yeah.
we're moving
That's
on
a-
to the
it's-
select boards.
That's a
It's part of
planning
the-
commission
the
question.
planning-
That's a
the
planning
You're on the
process.
wrong board.
Planning
Yeah.
commission
It's a good question, though.
Yeah,
might require some zoning.
Yeah.
Just saying.
don't say that word,
no.
Heartland, Christine.
That's
You
not
mean
a
like
thing.
create some?
That's not
Hush
our
now.
word.
But also it would require, it would require water and sewer.
Right.
For Heartland, because I think
Right.
that's
Yeah.
what's, that's
Sure.
what's preventing it in the place you would want it, which is the village centers.
Walking distance
Yeah,
places. Anyway,
Okay.
So that's
Okay,
where we're
so
at.
That's our student
Yep.
population. We're
Yep.
still decreasing. Do we have a solid 25 for kindergarten?
We
Like,
do.
Okay,
We have 25.
we have exactly 25.
We have exactly 25.
Exactly.
That could go up a little bit.
Yeah, I could.
Does that include the pre-K? I mean, the
TK,
T,
transitional kindergarten?
TK.
Yes, that includes TK.
That's in the 25.
Oh, so,
But there are kids.
right, yeah, no, that makes
Some of
sense.
them, right. Most of them.
Okay,
No, not a lot.
No.
Not a lot of Heartland kids are in that program. I think we have 2 that
oh,
opted.
okay.
I mean, it's optional, so
Okay.
parents get
Okay.
to choose.
So-
It's a building year. Hopefully that will grow.
So how many in the Hartland K? Not
23.
counting TK.
23.
Okay, 23, gotcha.
25
Gotcha.
minus 2.
We gotta think
Gotcha.
about the
I
maintenance.
see,
of that
okay,
for
I was
all that.
concerned, okay.
That was tough math, but I
That
got
was-
it.
Yeah, that would be tough.
I got it. Now I got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is the advantage of being in person.
It is.
Yes. Okay. So I
Beth
think-
hates it. She can't hear anything.
We miss you, Beth.
We miss you too.
You have no idea how much I'd rather be there.
It's, it's a shame getting stuck on vacation.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is the building committee. And we had a grand brainstorming session today where we
Yeah, it was good.
brainstormed everything. And we walked through the entire building and we saw all the nooks and crannies and a lot of what were they thinking when they built this? Because we all get used to the aspects of this building and
Mhm.
there are some oddities when you get
Look
around
at
to
it,
it. Some really skinny rooms and
So was the whole committee there?
yeah. So well, this was this was not the community committee. This was school people plus. So it was Jim Taft and Joe.
Mhm.
What's Joe's last name?
Putnam.
Putnam. Okay, Joe Putnam, and then David, Christine, myself, Sarah, Dave Ormston, John Leonard,
Lindsay.
and Lindsay. I
Yeah.
think that was it.
And Craig.
And Craig.
And Craig, of course, yes.
So it was just an awesome group of people that all have a lot of experience and ties to this building from different focuses. And so we were able to walk around and just kind of dream, which is what we did. And so now what we want to do is take some of those big brainstorm dreams, which there's a lot of them. I mean, this is not like, we have not narrowed down anything. And we want to take that to our community members that have volunteered to be on this group and do the same brainstorming session with them, but also to introduce what all of the people today brought to the brainstorm session. And then our thought is that we really need to hire an architecture firm to develop a sketch, to do something. Because this building has not functionally changed in 30 years. And it is not like, if we could give you a tour right now and you could see what some of the teachers are going to be in for closets, you would realize that it's just really not serving our purposes. And I know one of the realizations that I came to today is it's bothered me that we need to talk about changing the building when we had, 100 to 200 more students here at one point. But
425 when I
Yeah.
started.
yeah, 425 students.
No,
So
we had 2 mobile
150.
classrooms, but
You had what?
we had 2 mobile classrooms.
Oh, okay. Okay. So, yeah, so 400.
Yeah.
So we had 400 kids in this building, but education has changed so dramatically. Like now, those 400 kids were in classrooms and they had one teacher, and they were in big classrooms. And now we've got 2 fully dedicated special education rooms. We've got all kinds of other supports that this building just wasn't designed for.
Yeah.
Like we're talking about putting We Are Hope Counseling last year was on the stage. So
That's right.
like stuff like that is
That's
And
just
that's the
only
plan for
place
next
they-
year.
right. And so
We don't have a
like
space for 'em.
Yeah.
it's
I mean,
just,
we do have a space. It's the stage.
exactly.
Yeah.
So that's where our building is just really failing us for what education looks like today.
Yeah.
And I think that I don't see that trend changing.
No, and the 2 biggies, in my opinion, are the multipurpose room. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just, we need, and Craig likes to call it a dining hall, not a
Right.
cafeteria, dining hall. And the main office space is just not
Yeah,
in
right,
a
right.
good
We need-
location.
Yeah, we need a better entrance to
Yeah.
the school for a bunch of different
For safety
reasons.
reasons.
Yeah, but safety is probably the first.
Yeah.
one.
And we just need to use the spaces that we have.
Mhm.
We don't need to expand for a lot of those, the spaces that I was just talking about.
Right.
Right.
But we did, we invited Dave and John
Mhm.
Yeah.
because, if we're going to do something, would it make sense to do something collaboratively so that preschool could, there could be a preschool spot. There could be, could the after-school program use the dining hall as a space, after school? So that's why we invited them to get their ideas on the table as well. So it was a great brainstorming session.
It was
It was
awesome.
good,
It was
yeah.
the right, when you have the right people, it
Yeah.
works.
And it was very helpful too, just to sort of be, we had been thinking, oh, we could push out and do in dreaming big, have a dining hall out sort of behind where the multipurpose room is now.
Mhm.
But then we all got out there and we realized all the sewer and oil
Oil
tanks and
tanks, yeah.
everything are right where
There.
we were thinking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that didn't work, but then we found some other options that were
Yep.
Yeah.
very,
Some
Yeah.
good
Good.
ideas.
that were kind of creative and.
I will shout out during that conversation, Scott, I think you'll appreciate this. I thought of you when Jim shared. We used some CARES money to update our air exchange. I think it was $166,000. We're
Mhm.
almost done. And because of that automation, we are saving, we've saved 17% in energy costs because we can control. Yeah, so that was pretty
And-
exciting.
Energy Star Vermont,
Efficiency. Vermont.
Efficiency Vermont, said that we're a gold standard
In the state.
location.
In the
And so
state.
they're gonna interview Jim here as to show what we've done.
So that was pretty nice. It was great to hear that.
That was
Yeah.
great to hear.
Was
Yeah.
that part of the whole initiative, going back to school last year?
Yes.
Where we talked about
Yeah.
air
Yes.
handlers a
Yeah.
lot
Yeah.
and how that was gonna be
Right.
critical.
Yes.
Keeping
Right.
windows open in the fall as long as
Exactly.
you could and everything like
Yeah.
that. That was the
Well,
same
That was the same project.
Yeah.
project.
So it's exciting. I
Yeah.
think it's,
Yeah, they finished in January, I think. There are, what did he say, 2 more he told us to do.
Yeah, what did you do? Or what were the changes?
Oh, I don't know exactly what the changes were.
That's okay.
But I know we need 2 more air handlers and 6 univents to finish up the project. So,
and it's good that it's nice when doing the right thing saves
Yeah.
you money.
So getting back to like the space consideration, I mean, what are the superintendent and the principals in our WSCSU hearing from state associations or the agency as far as like what we should be planning for in our local districts for student numbers? A change in student numbers in the next 10 years, 20 years? What is that?
have you heard any of those
Is
projections?
No.
that something that comes up and
I mean, it's a
No.
problem across the
should we
state.
be doing our research ourselves?
Well, we don't, certainly the state doesn't have projections that far out. I do think in the short run, if you look, the 2 or 3 years out, everybody's still, even with folks moving up here because of the pandemic, there's still, the net is still
Still declining.
less, it's still declining. Yeah, but I think we could tease that out probably, Scott, if we wanted to, but I think you probably here would at least, I think you'd think constant to maybe a tiny bit of a decline, but we could look at that.
It's important to know,
Yeah.
to get some projections.
Yeah.
I mean, because the reason I bring
I
that
thought-
up is because the building, the physical plant is a critical part of the school district's operation. But it's part of the school district's operation. And of course, it lends to the students' experience and the productivity of the employees. It's hard to justify, in my mind, huge changes or additions of space when the customers of the system or the users of the system, that body in the school district is shrinking.
Mhm.
And I mean, another brainstorming idea would be that our middle school students go to our in-district middle school in Windsor, Vermont. And that would free up lots of space in the building.
You mean here? Yeah.
that these middle school students attend another middle school. And that would also, it would appease some of the negative aspects that we have understood for some years as trying to schedule a middle school in a building and having an elementary school with students that stay in rooms, in a middle school with students that are
Transitioning, yeah.
changing classes, transitioning, that's the word. And so I just think I mean, if we're brainstorming, that might be on the table.
Mhm.
And that's a big conversation for a community, but so would be adding a dining hall.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, and also part of, I mean, so we talk about adding a dining hall, I think we're talking about adding the functionality of a dining hall. It wouldn't necessarily, it may entail adding an addition to the building, but it would be awfully nice if somebody came in here and was like, oh, move this around and you got what you want.
Yeah.
Right, which an
So-
architect might
Yeah.
do for us,
Mhm.
yeah.
So I do want to put that on the record that we're not necessarily
Yeah.
talking about expanding the footprint, but
Okay, that's good. I'm glad you reminded me of that.
yeah, because that's what architects do is
And
they
I-
find space.
And I wouldn't want to be so dismissive of the future planning when we've known for years that the entrance to the building was problematic and the sight lines have been wrong
Exactly.
for as long as I've been a school director. And we've been wondering about it. And there's the whole sprinkling question.
The
which-
sprinkling.
So
question,
I have
right.
an update on that.
Yes.
Okay, let's
So
have
there's a
that.
lot of safety money out there right now.
Oh, good.
And we don't have, I don't think our front entrance issue falls under that, but our lack of sprinkling definitely does. And it needs to happen. I think the fire chief would agree that we should sprinkle this building. I personally agree.
How do you know that?
And I think, so what Jim is going to do is look into all of that
Cool.
and see if we can just get that done with money that's out there for safety, because it is
Mhm.
certainly a safety.
Are we eligible for, there's Homeland Security has some safety money
Yeah,
that
Yeah,
our
I
church
think we've already
has-
grabbed some of
We have.
that.
yeah.
That's for things like cameras and locks and alarm
Yeah.
systems. But there
Right,
may
and
be
we have
more
all
of
new
that.
camera
Jim thinks more of
systems.
that's
We
coming
do.
out. All
Oh,
the
you
cameras
do.
are done now.
The cameras, they've installed the last one today.
They just finished up today, so you've got up-to-date
Yep.
cameras and
So you've
every,
already taken advantage of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jim is good at looking at those
Yep.
things. Like he
Great.
pulled me aside today and talked about the sprinkler. So he's gonna, let's go ahead. And I think that we'll keep our fingers crossed that we can find money for that.
Cool.
The other thing, Scott, is part of our conversation about, I mean, I think part of the reason we wanted town representatives from the town there is thinking about that, you know, how can the school building become more of a community
Yeah.
resource as our numbers decline? And so we're doing lots of different things here, and we're using the space in lots of different ways. And the state really seems to be pushing this idea right now of
Right.
community schools and, you know, providing services to the whole community in your school building for exactly that reason.
Thank you.
Okay, so that's it for the building committee. We have another meeting on August 25th. With more
With the-
community
with-
members.
With community. I didn't invite you, but you're welcome.
no, that's
Yeah.
fine. No, that's good. No,
And
That-
we'll see
It's
what
good to do it
people,
today, though.
what brainstorms come out of that meeting. Okay, so I have the tax note next, but maybe financials.
Yeah, let's do
we'll roll
financials
that
first
over
and
to
then,
the tax note.
yeah, exactly. So I think I can pull this up on the screen too for our home viewing audience. But let's, I need to keep one for myself, but one, I know, I think we're good.
You good?
I think we pass those down. And let me see if I can pull up for everybody else at home. I'm gonna try this sharing thing again.
Do we need more down there? Here you go, Beth. Here's
You got
your
ex-
copy.
got some extra
Oh, yeah,
ones?
that's Beth's. Beth's copy right there.
I'm gonna go there, I'm gonna go there.
Okay.
We'd
Yeah.
like to see that.
I know. This is a good,
All right, so
balance sheet.
I can try to go a little bigger on this, but essentially, can everybody see that pretty much? Yeah, so the top box you're looking at there is your general fund revenue. And again, you look at it and a lot of those estimates are estimates at the beginning of the year or during the budget process, and Ed has to take his best guess. I think he comes pretty close, basically, to the education spending grant, the state aid transportation grants, and all of those as you look at that balance. And we were short about $29,926 in revenue, right? Then when we go down to expenditures, we look at expenditures, there are the expenditures. And the good news there is we had available balances at the end of the year, and a lot of these line items, including just about all of them, wages, benefits. Some of that was around hiring and the way we hired. Some of it was that we could write off some personnel to what was called the CARES money at that point, and so that worked. A lot of our materials and supplies, including things like sanitizing agents and all of that got covered under those State Emergency Act grants, essentially. Transportation is interesting. If you look at transportation, that looks like a big plus, but that's because, remember, we moved transportation from the local district to the SU, right? So if you go down to your assessments are up 288,000, but 241,000 of that is the transportation had to be added to the SU budget. And then the rest of that is, we talked about special education was up a bit. But the good news, I think, for Hartland in general is that when you get to the bottom of that column, you had an overage of 317,000, match that with the $29,000 shortage in revenue. And down at the bottom, you see that you have a $287,147 surplus. So that's going to be that's always better than a deficit. Sometimes a really large surplus can be a little bit of a problem because taxpayers feel you overtax them. But I think that's within a reasonable range, and it will help you. We can't use that money this year, as you know, but we can use it the year after as we're budgeting. And again, as we're thinking about ways to strategize around the pieces you were talking about earlier, equity and pieces like that, then you'll have a little extra. I mean, it always looks tricky. I think the equalized pupil is going to be held harmless again this year. That was part of that legislation. The spending threshold, there's not going to be that also runs for this year as well, or for next budget year.
Right.
So you're not going to have to worry about going over the spending cap. So this should be, and again, I don't want to be overly optimistic, and Ed would probably want to muzzle me right now, but I think this could be a little bit of a more comfortable budget year. Let's hope. And because again, the tax rate is always the bottom line, and you don't know what's going to happen to CLA and all of those pieces. Right. I do want to look at that little, I don't know if it's red on your sheet, but the red number.
I got the colors.
Yeah, the 47,197. It's under dues, fees, and transfer. Everybody see that?
Yeah.
And that's your food service. Remember we thought that the food service might break even this year?
Yeah.
It didn't break even, so, but why don't you pass these down, Colleen? I'm gonna show you the food service budget, because it ties into that.
That's less than we.
Yeah.
Exactly, it's much less than what you had budgeted, and for our viewing audience, I'll bring it up here too, if you guys wanna look at that. That's good, share that, can you share that?
Yeah.
Although I've got it right here. So on the food service budget, and I think hopefully everybody can see that. I could make that a little bit bigger if you wanted to. That's the revenue on food service. You can see that the revenues were great, because if you look down at the summer food service, because remember, under Universal, everything's considered summer food service all year long.
Scutney on it, though.
This is Mount Escutney.
Oh, well, that's not good. Well, wait a minute though.
Because
Maybe the label.
Hold on, maybe it is.
I think it's the
It
Mount
says Mount Escutney.
No, it's the Mount Escutney, shouldn't say school district, it should say the Mount Escutney Food Program. Because that's the name of I don't know, Craig named it Mount Escutney, so that should say
Program.
program, yeah,
That's for
exactly.
everyone.
Sorry about that.
This is the SUV.
This would be better read, right, justified, I'm just gonna say.
Well, let's do that then.
Oh.
Right, you mean, Yeah.
With the,
is that better? That's what it should say at the top. And as you go down, you can see that essentially, as you get to the bottom of the total revenue, we were $3,760 over in revenue over what was projected. And then under expenditures, if you look down on expenditures, you can see, I thought wages would be a little worse than that, but overspent by $461. That wasn't bad when we looked at it. The biggest expense overruns were probably under supplies and textbooks. Why they have you use that category 610, which is supplies and textbooks, it doesn't make any sense. But supplies for us would be things like all those little plastic cartons with the little film over that we had to deliver to classrooms. Craig had to order that. Halfway through the year, we were running out. So that was another about $25,000 order to replace those little cartons. And then under food, 36,000 overspent, not unusual because Craig's trying to buy local. He's trying to buy organic. He's trying to, which is what we've asked him to do, right? So that was overexpended 36,000. So essentially, when you get down to the bottom, total expenditures. I see why that it balances out at 3760 because your assessment is in there, right? So if you go back up to revenue, right?
Oh.
If you go back up to revenue, they have to equal, right? The revenue and the expenditures have to equal because you can't run a deficit in the food program. So if you look under assessment, the total assessment where my cursor is, if you can see it on the screen, was $341,144. And then it was broken out, right? Then we had the receivables, right, which left a balance. I think if we go way down at the bottom, essentially, we had to take that $144,000. We projected $341,000 that we would have to support the program, but it only ended up $144,508. So right now, and I know this is a little bit controversial, and we can talk about it at the SU level, but we then split that out by equalized pupil, and the top number, it's not labeled there, but the top number is Hartland, right?
47.
You had budgeted $111,348 as a food subsidy, and you're paying $47,197. I don't know if savings is the right word, but you're less $64,150, which I'm sure is contributing a little bit to your surplus, right? That doesn't hurt when you budget high. Mount of Scutney, if you want to look at it, that's the next one. 43% equalized pupil. They had budgeted $149,000. They paid $63,000, and the same thing there with equalized pupil for Weathersfield. They budgeted $80,000, spent $34,000. So they were they quote unquote saved, if that's the good word, $46,000.
So I think,
Go ahead.
taking a step back, I know that we thought we were going to break even, but this is less than what we were paying for cafe services.
That's correct.
That's good news.
That's good
Yeah.
news.
Food.
What?
For higher.
For much
For
better
much
food.
Higher quality food.
and more
Yeah.
And not
flexibility.
necessarily
and,
his best because of the
Because,
circumstances
right,
this year.
exactly.
Exactly.
Good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
very good news. Remind me why.
And I'll also say they're
Debate
much more
around.
equitably paid staff.
Say that a little louder.
The staff are much more equitably paid
Yes.
compared to when the food service company was here.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, most of our food service staff are paid anywhere from $15 to $20 an hour. Cafe services were paying $12 to $13 an hour.
And with no benefits. They had no
Have you-
benefits.
And with benefits, exactly. They all have benefits.
have you broken those numbers down to kind of see how we ended up so under budget? I mean, did we spend less on food or did
No,
we spend
Colleen,
more
it has
on?
to do with the way It's this past year it's like you can't compare anything. It's going to be
It's COVID.
hard to- because
That was-
instead of the national lunch program, we didn't run the national lunch program this past year. We ran the seamless summer meal program, which is at a higher reimbursement rate. So instead of getting $3.27 per lunch or whatever it is, we're getting
It's more.
$4.23 per lunch.
Oh, so this
No.
isn't necessarily going to last.
So it's not going to necessarily last. It should, next year it will. It will. It's still the stimulus summer program. And so it reimburses at a higher rate. It also gives a lot more serving flexibility and things
It'll
like
work this year, again.
And are
Should.
those federal dollars or state dollars or both?
They're all fed money.
Which is why it's a separate fund and we can't commingle it
Yeah.
with the supervisory union. So
In a regular year, Vermont got rid of the reduced category because most states have free or reduced lunch. So kids would have to pay 68 cents for their lunch instead of the whatever. And so Vermont got rid of that. And so there would be state funds coming in to pay the difference between the free and reduced rate kids. So that's the state funds those would be the only state funds coming into the program.
Do the reduced kids get free?
Yeah. So all the reduced kids in Vermont get free.
No,
That's free.
now they get free.
Yeah, they're just free.
And actually, as we know, everybody got free
Right.
this year. But the more you serve, the more Craig can count. And the more, if you look back up at the revenue side, I mean, he did with, the summer food service revenue was $638,003. I mean, that's a fair amount of revenue. He had some claim months that were 100,000 plus, and we were averaging maybe 80. So that was a pretty big increase with universal meals. So that helped a lot. But I think that's another argument for another way, first of all, to categorize free, and I know the state's talking about that, but also I think an argument for continuing with universal, because at least it's everybody is sort of being treated equally, and the biggest thing is there's no more stigma about eating lunch, if you're free and reduced. So, but I think Sarah's right. That's good news. That $47,000 that you then translated back to that $47,000 in your budget, right? But you still ended up with a pretty healthy surplus this year. And I think that was partly, good management on the part of your building administrators, but also some of the things we did, as a district that are costs that don't necessarily translate. One, I don't know whether or not we can see this here, but
So
yeah,
this
maintenance and repair.
next year there may even be another chance. They're putting into place a local buying incentives for schools. So if a school can prove they're buying a certain amount of local food, then they get reimbursed at a higher rate. We'll
At
get
a higher
reimbursed
rate,
at a
right.
higher rate for that food.
And we should do well there.
Pay for it. So we could actually even be making a little bit more money.
Yeah. Matter of fact, Angie showed me today that Craig had shared with her. You'll be interested in this, Scott, that there's a farm, Miller Farm. Do you know Miller Farm? I don't know. Where is it, Angie? Do you
In
know?
Vernon, Vermont.
It's in Vernon, Vermont, Miller Farm. And what this farmer is doing, pay attention here, Scott, because this looks good.
Yeah.
What this farmer is doing is he's going to bottle the organic milk into little
8-ounce.
8-ounce containers, much like you get in the milk cooler at school. And now, again, it's a little bit different in price, but what Craig wants to do is experiment with maybe, 1 day a month, letting.
It would be less expensive to get a milk machine and do bulk
that again?
milk, bulk milk.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I got a kick out of that. And I thought of
Yeah.
you, Scott, when,
Yeah.
I mean, obviously processing, bottling.
I'm firmly on the side of milk is milk. So
Oh, there you go.
I don't get.
You don't get too wound up
I don't
about
get wound
organic
up
milk?
About organic anything or organic milk. I was wondering on your chart, the
Yeah.
Mount Scottney Food Project, is there one of the lines on the revenue portion? Is one of those lines the summation of all the monies that families, the cash?
Yeah.
There's no cash.
No cash issue. Most of the cash you see
So this is the
For
last year.
food.
would be sales to adults.
Right.
That's at 16,667. The rest of it is on that bottom line,
we-
summer food service, 684,
We
143.
apparently didn't.
Those are
collect any
reimbursed.
cash.
Yeah.
Adults.
No.
Yeah, I'm
No.
sure finance
Yes,
would have a number like that.
No, you did,
Put it into
16,667
And
across the
Silas
year.
just wanted to make sure, since it's a public meeting, he wanted to voice that he really needs a chocolate milk machine above anything else. So just to
Okay,
be
that's
clear.
good.
Duly noted.
Duly, write that
Silas
down.
had that
Yeah.
chocolate milk machine.
Chocolate milk machine.
Got it.
Yeah.
At organics.
Boy,
That
if
was
that
like
could-
one of my childhood memories is the milk
Mhm.
machine that was just this big stainless
Yeah.
monstrosity
Yeah.
that was so bizarre.
Oh, the big one with the big
Yeah.
handle?
Yeah.
I
They
think,
work great though.
Yeah.
I think
think
Craig
they
wants to
will.
get, I think he's gonna have those in the building.
Their initial cost, for cups and stuff like that, and obviously teaching kindergartners how to pour milk.
product,
is always fun. But yeah, it's not, and there's more, you can buy more local because more local folks will put it in the
Yeah.
big things
Yeah.
versus the tiny little containers.
What is generally the definition of local?
Vermont Farm to
That's
Plate is anywhere in Vermont.
Anywhere in Vermont?
So schools can define it a little bit. Vermont is, I was really pushing because like we're in the Upper Valley. Before it was Vermont plus 60, I think it was. So it was 60-mile radius around Vermont, but they just changed this last year. But
So no
schools can define it also themselves if they really want, just to reach the goals of their own program. They might, so I don't know if if Craig goes to Edgewater and buy a whole bunch of blueberries or whatever, can he count that toward his local for next year to be reimbursed
Right.
at a higher rate?
Right.
Probably not. Which
Right.
sucks. So, because so we're, I mean, I've I'm working on that to see how we can do that.
Could someone, David, you said something about the ongoing controversy over equalized pupil. I vaguely remember a discussion
So
about that.
our
Nikki
equalized
can
pupil-
remind you.
Yeah, I can remind you. I'm on it.
Remind me.
Our equalized pupil includes all of our high school students.
Yep.
Which we're not feeding.
Right, exactly.
So another way to look at it is like here in Heartland, we only need 2 kitchen staff,
Right.
2 1/4 to a half.
So we should not be, right.
Like
Right.
Windsor has
They probably have
5,
4.5 or
4.5.
4.5.
Yeah. So should we really be paying a third of?
No.
Because we're not,
Yeah, we need to adjust.
we're
that.
feeding 250 kids.
Well,
Right.
again, we didn't have time,
Yeah.
not that we didn't have time, but I think what we need to do is we need to run those comparisons and see. I mean, if it's only off by a percentage point or not, maybe it is worth doing it that way. But it's an
Well, but it's a
easy,
third. It's a third more that we're paying, right? Because if we have 140 high school kids,
We're paying
and
for
let's
140
say
kids that we're not serving.
it's probably 120 or
Right.
130 that are not being
Right.
served within the SU.
right. And in the universal world, I think that's apples to apples. I think if you get out of the universal
Right,
world
yeah.
and you're looking at how many kids are getting served, right? And not that we couldn't get those numbers too,
Right.
but I think right now what would be simple is probably just to use your building count, right? Or
Yeah,
your-
I would just
Yeah,
use
just
the
Right.
building population.
Right.
Exactly. Just use
And,
building count.
and that should be easy, but that's what I want to compare. I think we need a little bit of time to just look at that and see how that
The other
how
thing-
that compares out.
Okay.
But we had to close the books out, so we went with what. we-
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
this is what we agreed on.
Yeah,
But
for one
next
more year,
we're gonna
right.
agree on something
Have a different agreement.
Right,
Yeah, what I was gonna say was when it all came apart last spring and students went home. And so quickly the communication from the school district was, you high school students, you're home now too. And remember, these Hartland buses are coming out with meals. And so
Yeah.
contact us, we can bring you meals.
that's
a
correct.
Very good
We
point.
fed them
So
last
We
our-
fed them all.
Our
Yep.
system ramped up to feed all the students in the district. you know.
Yeah, so
So has to
certainly
have that
for this,
capacity.
this past year,
Probably makes some sense, yeah.
it absolutely makes sense. Yeah, no, that's a
this
good point.
last year.
And there's also the confusion
That would have
factor
been the last fiscal
underneath
year.
this,
Well, the spring.
underneath the current way we're running. We can feed all the way from birth to 18.
Right,
So we should be feeding children if we're doing delivery ever again, that we're feeding younger siblings and stuff as well. We should be doing that.
Yeah.
So they're not even like in our
Dinner,
meals.
obviously.
Yeah,
That's
Yeah.
for everybody.
practically. Have two
and the
people.
summer program is in there too, and it would be interesting
Yeah.
to see how many, how many Hartland kids were fed, how many Windsor kids were fed. My guess is it's going to be around those same percentages in terms of the summer feeding, right? I mean, because that's built into this, well, it's not built into this budget, but or that financial, but it would be built into, in other words, last summer, like Scott said, when we were delivering all those meals everywhere and including feeding the high school kids, right? Anybody up to 18, how would that have played into this number?
Right.
Which is probably why it was good that this year we stayed with
Yep.
equalized people, and next year we can run
Yeah.
the building-based count.
And I also think, I mean, just from our high school kids, I think, take part less.
And I wonder what, do you know, Christine, do you know the budget? Like, what did we
My
budget
comment
for
is
food
like,
service,
whatever we
food
decide on
service subsidy?
is kind of foundational to
I think it's under dues
the
and
system's
fees.
readiness.
Right.
Like however the
Yeah.
funding is.
Well, and the
financing
system,
system.
the
FY
system
20.
is centralized in the sense that, if we had to go back to that, that's all like everyone then comes together to
Yeah.
do that. So it doesn't, at that point, it doesn't really matter how many staff you have at each school because they're all going to do it in one place. But it's good for keeping that capacity is important. I don't know what's gonna-
Okay, so was that it for?
But that's good,
financials?
that's it for that, and then all that's left is the tax anticipation. No, we need to
Yes.
do that,
Yes.
So,
unless there are any other questions.
I was thinking forward to budgeting season, and I was like, wait, we're not doing this yet.
Not yet, but very soon.
You're like
It'll-
4 months ahead of schedule.
It'll be,
Okay, tax note.
okay, so
Okay,
the tax
so-
note, we've done, do you want to explain it, Nikki? or-
Yeah, I mean, I can explain
pretty
it. I've
simple,
explained
yeah.
it in front of, although I haven't looked at it, I assume it's the same as before.
Yeah,
This
probably a
is
different
just,
amount, but,
it's authorizing borrowing in anticipation of taxes. And the idea there is that taxes are paid in September, and is it August or September? But then due in August?
I
I
think
really
it's,
should know this, but my
it's-
bank just
I think it's October. Is it in
Yeah, we just
October?
got a bill, but
just got a
it's
bill.
due.
Oh, we
That's
just got
terrible.
a
You pay twice a year, don't you?
Yeah, we pay twice,
Yeah.
okay, so we pay taxes twice a year.
We do, yes.
And we.
In the fall and spring.
Fall and
all of us-
spring.
And all of us apparently are on automatic
Not
pay.
opened that, I have not opened that envelope yet.
So we pay our teachers twice a month. And
Yeah.
so the
Starting in
idea,
August.
yeah, starting in August. And so the idea is that we're paying at times that are offset from when the taxes are, and we may be having to pay for money that we haven't collected yet. And so this is a note that says that we can borrow that money short-term, pay our teachers, and then collect it and pay it right back.
Pay it back, yeah.
Yeah.
Usually
So-
gets paid by the end of November, December, sometime before this year's ends.
Yeah.
This calendar year ends. And the amount, so the motion would need to be to borrow from the Mascoma Bank. I think you should have the name of the bank in there. The amount of 1 million. And I think Wendy's good at this because she did this last night with Mount Scottney, but $1,418,925.41. I always love the pennies at the end.
Don't forget that one.
I mean, I don't know why you would borrow 41 cents, but I guess it covers all of your expenses. In a tax anticipation note. And I think that's it. And then what you do is once you make that motion, certainly can discuss it. If there are any questions, that's fine. Then I'll pass the paperwork around because at least a majority of you have to sign it. And we have 4 people there. So here tonight. So that's good. So we'll be able to make this a legal document. Wendy will get me the minutes. Wendy, you did a great job. I think I had them before I went to bed last night. How'd you do that? That was good because the minutes have to go with the signatures and with a letter from our attorney, Pietro. And we've already got that. And then the bank just writes us a check for that amount of money. It's scary money, but that's what they do.
Yeah. So, can you read the motion again and
Yes.
somebody will say the same?
Well, Wendy, do you want to read the motion back? Did you get it all? Can we hear you? She's going to go on
I was muted, sorry. Yeah, so the motion is to borrow $1,418,925.41 from Mascoma Bank for a loan, tax anticipation note to cover the payrolls. What we said last night was for 8/1, 8/15, 9/1, and 9/15. The tax note technically runs the whole entire fiscal year, but will likely be satisfied by the end of the calendar year.
Right. Because the loan date actually will be 8/10/2021, which is, that's today, but he's going to do this tomorrow. And the maturity date is 6/30/2022. You really have the whole year to pay it, but
Yeah.
we'll pay it back as soon as we can. The interest rate too, by the way, on notes like this is really, it's really low. And I don't have it right here in front of me, but I know it's, I think it's like under 1%. It's very, municipal borrowing is a lot different than, I don't see the interest rate in here, but I'm sure it's in here somewhere.
So while David looks for the interest rate, is there anybody that wants to move that?
Can I move it as read by Wendy?
You can.
I would love to do that.
Move the motion as read by Wendy.
Yes.
Yeah, and whatever you, and you can use the same wording you used last time.
I liked that wording.
That worked. Yeah, it was good. It covered it all.
Do we want the interest amount in the?
I know you don't need to have that in the motion. I
Is
just
there a
thought it would
second?
be interesting to have it. Usually it's right at the
Anyone
top.
second?
I'll second.
Okay. Okay, so we have Colleen. Sarah. Okay, so Wendy, that was Colleen motioned and Sarah seconded.
So
Any-
for the discussion, did I hear that this is covering payroll only? Is that what Wendy said?
Well, it'll cover, yeah, that's why I don't know that we need the payroll part in there, but it definitely covers, that's the biggest expense in the next couple of months, right? But it covers all expenses prior to tax collection.
Okay, that's not what the motion, I heard the,
Wendy, what, did the motion have payroll in there?
To say to me.
I think she was
She
explaining
said-
it,
She
but
said very specific payrolls.
Well, it said including payrolls. It's not
Okay.
specifically to payroll, but including it.
Okay, great. I think that's good.
Okay.
Okay,
All right. We like it,
great.
or I like it. I
Yeah.
don't speak for anyone else.
I'm good.
Yeah, no.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of approving the note, approving the tax note for $1,418,925.41 through Mascoma Bank, as properly described in Wendy's motion, please signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Abstentions? We got nothing. Okay, so that was approved.
Yeah, and the interest rate, by the way, is not under 1%. It was 2.65%. So that makes more sense.
Yeah.
I'd like to always borrow money at 2.6% if I could. That's not bad.
Okay, so.
So I'll pass these down if you want to start signing. Just look for your name and the little tab. Should be a black pen if,
That's black.
Is there a black pen on
yeah,
that?
we've got a black pen
Here
coming.
we've got.
I've got black. You got it.
David,
Yes.
because the district's, the speed in which the district responds to our community's tax funds being available and pays them back to the Mascoma Bank, are we rewarded for that? I mean, is this a fixed amount of interest to
Right.
be paid, or are you rewarded if you pay it back a week earlier than you might? Are you following me?
I am.
I mean, the faster
In
you
other
pay
words-
it back, are you saving money?
Well, I think there's no penalty for paying it back early, which is a better way maybe to say it, but I think that interest rate would be the full amount over that maturity point. So I don't think you'd save money by paying it back early, but you wouldn't lose money either, right? So, yeah, no, I don't think so.
So it's the car loan versus the.
It's like any other loan, right? You're going to pay that amount with like a car loan,
Right.
and you're not going to pay any penalty for paying back early, but
Right.
my guess is you probably would, Ed would be better at that, but I think you probably would save money if you paid back early. What you used to be able to do, and you can't do it anymore, which districts used to be able to borrow money and then invest that money, like we'd borrow at 2.65 and invest at 4. It was called arbitrage. You could make a little money on it, but that stopped about 10 years ago. It was a great way to do it, but the banks didn't think that, and neither did the government. But
You don't need my signature when I get back?
yeah, we don't need, as long as we have a majority of the board, I think we're good. When are you back, Beth?
Hopefully Saturday?
Oh, yeah, she's stuck. Is she stuck somewhere?
Yeah.
She's snowed in.
How'd she get stuck?
It's a long story.
We can say that in executive session. It doesn't need to be
Okay.
recorded.
Sounds good.
It's an odd situation.
Yeah, but no, we only need the 4 signatures. That'll be fine.
Okay, so the last thing on the items for discussion is back to COVID. And I think we put COVID at the end so that we could further, yeah, I'm just gonna keep going. Too distracting. I will sign that. David, make sure I sign that before we leave. can't
I will.
talk and sign
I
at the
will.
same time. So we went back to COVID to, I think, talk further about masking, so we didn't get dragged down in the principal's report. Is that,
Right,
I put it back on the agenda.
right.
So,
Okay.
and so we are,
That didn't work, did it?
no, it didn't work. So we're gonna meet as an SU next week, and I think it makes sense for this to be an SU-wide decision.
That would be.
Collaboration.
Yeah, I think that's true. It would be tough to have one school do one thing and
Exactly.
another school do another thing.
Especially with employees that are.
Right, in that is, in both all buildings,
Yeah.
yeah.
My only thought about that, though, is that we are going to have very different numbers, very different percentages of vaccinated.
It's
people.
possible, yeah.
Because in a building that has high school students in it,
Yeah.
you're going to have a much higher percentage. And so I would not want to make the decision based on a percentage when we have different percentages in our buildings. We may have a lower percentage is what I'm saying.
Want to touch
We could
that
also
panel
base
again?
it on percentage.
Touch that panel again?
We
And
could,
well, and
but
so
that may
that's
be
what
It's still a
different
universal, it's not,
policy,
Thank
but
you.
it's different decisions for each building.
right, it's the same policy, universal policy, but different.
Well, maybe it's also
That's
that every school in the supervisory union needs to be at 80% or whatever before.
Or better,
Yeah,
right.
we could do
For
that
any
too.
school.
And then, yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And I think one of the advantages we have in our SU is that our high school is in the building, right? So in other words, we're not going to be able to do anything with high school until that building is at 80%. So, and that's not going to be friendly for those high school kids, but I think it's the way it's going to be.
It's the way it has to be.
It has to be.
So, well, we'll all see if the rest of the SU agrees with us.
What do you mean friendly?
Plus, we're supposed to, we are, the Agency of Education said to us that, and I think our nurses have this ability too, but to actually find the percentage of people who are vaccinated in our building. Did
they
you know
do.
that? Yeah,
Yeah, the nurses.
the nurses can do that. So
And
we'll know when we get close to that
And
80%.
keep
Christine, what are you hearing from staff regarding masking? Are you hearing anything from them?
I haven't really, I've shared with a few people that have been in, but no. I mean, I think staff just want to keep everybody safe.
Writings
That's
on
the
the wall.
primary goal, yeah.
I think the writing's on the
Yeah.
wall.
I don't think.
I think so.
I think they're more concerned, and I wouldn't disagree. We've set up rooms, we've got a plan to have to go back to some distancing requirements would be really challenging. So I think,
Yeah, it's a lot easier to just put on a mask.
yeah, exactly. So, yeah,
So we'll call that a wrap on COVID.
okay.
Okay, so we now have a few outstanding items for action, and one was to approve the hiring of Sandra Gould and to approve the resignation of Sarah Gould.
I move that we approve the hiring of Sandra Gold and the resignation of Sarah Colby.
Okay, is there any seconds?
Second that.
Okay, so moved by Colleen, second by Scott. Okay, and I just want to say that I think we all wish the best for Sarah in her new path forward.
Absolutely.
I'm excited to hopefully hear what she ends up doing, and I think that what she did in the school for 14 years has been great. So I know that the students adored her. And I'm looking forward to hearing what happens. Okay, so any further discussion? All those in favor of approving the hiring of Sandra Gould and the resignation of Sarah Colby, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstentions? Okay, we're good. So the next agenda. I would like to keep equity on there because I think that in that little brainstorming session, we made progress.
We may have some more numbers by our next. It also occurs to me that it probably would be good to talk to our music staff about this.
Yeah.
And just make sure that I mean, it's possible that if everybody decided to play a band instrument, that probably would have some staffing implications and right.
It certainly would.
So
And
it
if there
might be,
needs to be a finite number, we get that number, it might be easier to budget to that anyway.
yeah, I mean, and just to see
Well, how would you
if our music staff has thoughts about how to do it, or if there might be some
Okay.
ways so it just might be good to have a conversation. I mean, probably, I mean, I would be happy to do that, but probably Christine, that's more
Yeah,
appropriate.
I'm happy to do
for you
it.
to, for you to do that.
I'll talk to Jamie and Becca.
I think we're good on the student population. We'll have a building committee update.
Yep.
What'll be the date, Nikki?
Of the next meeting?
Or
Figure that out.
roughly?
It would be the first Monday or the first
Tuesday.
Tuesday in
Tuesday.
September, which would be the first day of school.
boy.
That's not
Probably
a
not
good thing.
idea.
Is anybody
Right
else?
after Labor Day weekend. I mean,
Oh, because we're back to the first week.
Yeah.
This is
first
the-
Tuesday.
It doesn't matter to me, but
Yeah, I mean, I can do it, but
I don't think.
for will our administrators be?
Is that the
Are you
third-
guys gonna be
Exhausted.
okay?
Be fine.
is
It
is
might
that
matter more to the
August 31?
administrators.
No.
No,
It
it
would
would be
be
September
the-
7th.
Okay.
What is it?
September 7th?
September 7th.
Here.
It happens every year. It does.
Exactly. There'll be
Yeah.
some rebellion in my house, but we'll manage it.
But your first day of school for administration shouldn't be till like 9 o'clock at night. That seems like cruel and unusual punishment.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean,
Do you want to do the following week?
Does that get into,
Just
when
when
is
this-
Weathersfield's meeting?
There's probably the 8th.
It's a Tuesday too.
It's okay, Beth.
But like, do you just want to get it over with?
I mean, it's
Because
a
you're
late
just gonna
night,
get
no
more
matter
tired.
what. It's a late night, no matter what.
Okay.
You'll be all right.
Yeah.
all right.
You'll be all right.
I'll be all right.
Okay.
I'll-
I mean, Dave can do
Lindsay,
anything.
are you gonna be okay?
Well, principals.
I'm good.
Tense day.
Okay.
It's a tense day.
It's also
We can
Rosh
get a
Hashanah.
report on
I
the
know,
first
oh
day.
wait, it is Rosh Hashanah too.
Anybody?
I mean, we do the big ones, so we probably will not. It'll be okay for me.
Okay, so we just decided the meeting is the 7th at 6 PM. Some of us, I think it was me, David, and Christine, maybe Sarah, talked about hosting the next meeting at the SU office so that we could try out the owl.
Yeah.
And explore if we want that option here. I think this was awesome. So I think we'll try out both and see how they work. So we talked about alternating for a few until we figure out which technology is the best for the group.
Yeah, this worked very well, and thank you to
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
too.
guys for making
Cat
it possible.
TV, yeah.
yeah, thank you guys. Yeah, this has worked a lot better. I know Sarah was nervous about a hybrid meeting, and I think it is working, I hope. Okay, so so that'll be at the SU office.
Okay.
And Wendy, I don't even know if, we could put at the SU office to test equipment.
Yeah,
So that, I don't want a community uproar because we chose different equipment to see if we like it before we spend money on it. So,
Do we want to like as a group get there at like 5:45 to work out kinks? So we start at 6?
I think that the kinks have already been worked out because it's been used. It was used for the last SU meeting, and it was cool. And there will be at least 2 or 3 SU meetings in between that, or so I think it should be like ready to go. It was
It will.
slick.
It was
Yeah.
pretty smooth last time.
Yeah. And for the record, that's where Hanover went, so we know that it has to be top notch. Okay, so, I have equity discussion, building committee.
I'm sure there will be COVID related
Sure there'll be COVID.
discussions.
Yeah, okay, we'll put that on the actual. I think hiring is gonna have to be on here, but that'll be part of the principal's report too. Like, do you want COVID and hiring as part of your report?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm not gonna put those in our.
you do it anyhow.
So
I'll
I
do it
asked you
anyway,
when the date was because we have a mediation, so the following Tuesday is already in the calendar as all-day mediation.
So the 14th.
The 14th.
Okay, so we're.
But it's not all day, it's 3 p.m.
Oh.
Sure,
Okay.
Mike.
All day.
Thank goodness.
Okay,
Then you'll feel relieved when
No
it's only
report
3
on
p.m.
So, let's put the legislative update and we'll, see if we can get our legislators in.
September 7th,
We might have
what we
A
decided
building
on.
committee update as well.
That's on there.
Oh, that's on there.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm gonna stick with, equity discussion, building committee, legislative update, and I'm gonna put, budget prelim.
Budget's always on.
Yeah, so just a preliminary look at, what we're thinking.
Okay.
That sound good?
Sounds good.
Okay, Wendy, you good? Okay, so executive session, do we need one?
I don't think we do, to be honest with you. I think we're okay. I think we're okay. Do you?
I think we're good.
No, I think it's good.
Okay. Okay,
I just
so-
need that note documentation back.
oh, yeah, no, I'll give you that. So, I'm gonna call the meeting to end, and then we could talk to Beth personally.
Yeah, you can, hang on,
I'll
Beth.
call the meeting to end, you guys can stop recording.
So we just
and
need a
then we'll-
motion to adjourn then,
Yeah,
right?
so we'll,
Although we can't talk about, unless we call an executive session, we can't talk about any.
no, we won't talk
No.
about
So, yeah,
school.
okay.
No, we're not talking about school stuff.
We can just- okay.
We're just catching up with the board member that's not.
That's not it.
Okay. Okay, so
Good.
I'll take a motion
Yes.
to adjourn. I lost
So
the word.
moved.
Okay, Scott,
Mhm.
second?
Second, you put it in your.
Okay, Sarah,
your
second.
budget this year.
All those in favor?
They decide
Aye.
Aye.
what to do with the budget.
Opposed?
It's your
Mentions?
budgeting
Okay,
this
we're
year
good.
for FY
So, meeting has ended.
And Wendy, we'll test your ability to get those minutes out again. Good.
Let's see how fast I am. We'll see.
I know you can do it.
Bye, everyone.
Stop recording, whoever's.
Thanks.
enjoying the meeting can stop recording.
I'm gonna
It's
stop
recording.
recording right now.
Okay.
And we're gonna stop recording right now. And